So in the coming videos we will be making a React application where we will add ideas as cards, and we can change the theme of the idea cards with a toggle theme button. So in our first part of the video, we will be just creating the idea box. That is, we will have a feature of adding a title and a description of the idea, and it will appear in the application as a card. In the next part of this video, we will be adding the toggle theme feature inside our application using useContext and use React hooks. So in the previous video we discussed these topics in detail. Although you might not have been aware, but context is something that has been available for us already in React. It is not something new along with hooks. So whenever we wanted to pass something earlier from one component to another, we used props. However, when we have to pass something across and down through many components, this can become really cumbersome. So context allows us to make data available to all child components without passing it via props. So for this we have already seen an example of the theme component where we checked that the theme of our component is light or dark. This was done using the create context, where we created theme context and assigned it to create context. Before hooks, we would have use of theme context dot consumer in order to get the context out of the component hierarchy. However, using the useContext hook, we can easily tell any component to grab the value for a particular context. useContext takes one argument, the context which it should look in the tree for, and returns the value that it finds for the context. When to use context? When we have some pieces of data that is needed by a large portion of our application, we will be using context. Along with this question, another question arises, that is when not to use context. So when data is only needed by one component or a component and its immediate children, as then we do not use context. As we have already discovered, adding context is not as simple as passing a prop. So if passing a prop is the easier route, go that way. Do not add the extra complexity unless you're getting a clear win. As applications grow in complexity, our state trees can quickly get out of hand. If we have only a few pieces of state referenced in our topmost component, it will be pretty easy to figure out how all the pieces of state are used and how they're updated. But what if we have 100 components? One of our best patterns that has emerged to address this complexity is the reducer. At its core, a reducer is just a function responsible for managing changes to state. It decides how update state based on what kind of actions are dispatched to it. An action is a regular JavaScript object which describes a change to state. Just like an action, a reducer is just plain old JavaScript, but it follows a specific pattern. One very important rule to follow with reducers is to make sure they are pure. This means that the arguments passed into the function must remain unchanged and the same input will always yield the same output. Now talking about the second most important thing in this video, that is useReducer. useReducer is a React hook which enables the use of this advanced pattern. When we call useReducer, we must pass the reducer function that will be used and the initial state. It is important to remember that useReducer is generally used in place of useState in a component because they are solving the same problem. From this invocation, we are given the state association with the reducer we just created. Now let us go ahead and start our today's example. So in today's example, we will be having a component where we will be adding tasks inside our application. So for that, we will have an input tag and a button, and whatever we add, we will have a title, a description, and a submit button. And according to that, we can add ideas into our component. So for that, inside my components folder, I am going to create my first file, which is ideas.js. Here I am going to create, so I am going to import React from React, and I'm also going to import a component named card from card. This will be creating right after this component, and we can also add a CSS file, but for now we will not do that. So const ideas, it has two arguments, ideas and delete idea. Now we will be creating a const idea card, and we will be mapping these ideas from the map function. So idea, and inside here we will have a return statement. So we are going to make this component the child component. So card is the child component of idea component. This has a title which is assigned to idea dot title. Next it has a description which is assigned to idea.description, an ID which is assigned to idea.id, and a key. This key is also assigned to idea.id because that is unique, and in any case the key should be unique. Next is delete idea. This is assigned to delete idea. Now we will add the original return. So for that, return so here first we will add a div, and then we are going to display idea cards. Now we will export default ideas. So this is the first component. Next we are going to create form.js. So inside my components I'm going to create form.js. I'm going to import React, and along with that I'm also going to import component. So this is a class component. So class form extends React.component. We will be adding rconst. So no props inside the constructor. So inside this dot state we have a title. Initially this title is an empty string, and a description. This is also an empty string. Now we are going to handle change taking an event E, and here we will call the setState method, and then event dot target dot name, and this is assigned to event dot target dot value. Now we have a submit idea function taking event so here first of all event dot prevent default, next we have a const new idea, which has an ID of date dot now, and it has this dot state. And we are calling this dot props dot add idea, passing the argument new idea. Next we will call this dot clear input. We haven't yet written the clear input function, so clear inputs again we will call the setState method, and here the title will be again an empty string, the description also an empty string, now we will be adding the render method, and the return statement. Inside return we first have a form component, then an input tag. This input has the type text, a placeholder title, the name is title, and the value is this dot state dot title. On change passed to event, and we will be calling this dot handle change with the event as the argument. Next we will be adding another input. This input again has the same features, so we'll just copy this and paste and change whatever is required. Type text, the placeholder is description. Name will also be description. And the on click is this dot handle change dot event. Lastly, we will add a button with an on click taking the event E assigned to this dot submit idea, and the event is the argument. This button will have submit as its name, and now we will export default our component. Export default form. Next we are going to create a component that is card. This card is going to be displayed after we add the idea. So card.js, using RFCE I am creating a functional component, and instead of function I will replace it with const. Now the const card takes few inputs, that is title, next description, next ID, and then delete idea, delete idea is is favorited. Now inside my div, we will have first an h3, which is going to display the title. And a p tag, which will display the description. It will also have a button which has an on click. So here we will be calling the delete idea. With the id as the argument. And we will just add a cross for the button. Now lastly, we will go to the app component. This will be a class component for today. So class app extends React.component. And we will also import component. We will import all our components. So import ideas from components. Next we will import form. Now we will be adding our constructor. So our const and the state will have ideas, which is an empty string. Then we will add a function add idea, taking new idea as parameter and this dot set state. So here ideas is going to create a new state. So this dot state dot ideas, and the second argument is new idea. Next we will be writing delete idea. This will be taking the id as an argument. And we will create a const filtered ideas using this dot state dot ideas dot filter, and it is going to filter the idea according to the id. So idea dot id if is not equal to id. So then this dot set state ideas is assigned to filtered ideas. Now adding the render. So inside the div we will have an h1 just saying idea box, and next is our form. This form will have add idea assigned to this dot add idea, and the ideas component where ideas is assigned to this dot state dot ideas, and delete idea is set to this dot state this dot delete idea. So now if we go ahead and start on our server, so you can see we have two inputs and a submit button. You might have noticed that till now we haven't used the useContext and the useReducer. So we will be replacing this hard-coded thing with useContext and useReducer, and then we will be seeing the difference in our codes. So now let us go ahead and add CSS to our document. So I'm inside app.js and I'm just adding class name app to the main or the div that we have added, and after that we will be adding the CSS code. So we will be targeting the app, that is the class name. Here we are going to set the text alignment to center, and after that we are going to target the app header, that is the h1 or the heading of the tag. We want the background color to be (282C34), that is black. The min height is set to 100 VH. The display is set to flex, that is there will be columns of whatever cards will be displayed. The flex direction is set to column. The align item is set to center. Justify content is set to center, and then the font size is set to, we have a calculate function, so that is set to. You can add it or combine it according to yourself. The color is set to white, so initially it will be displayed in white color. After app.css we are going to target the others. So inside my components I'm going to create a new file, that is the CSS file for card. So card.css. We will also import the CSS file and we will add the class name. So class name is set to here. Inside backticks we will add card and then we will add some JSX expressions. So this is favorited, and then we will be targeting these. And we are going to check for the favorite. We will also import this file in the card.css file. Inside card.css we are going to target the dot card. We will give it a box sizing of border box, a border of 3 pixels, that is solid black, and we will give it a padding of 10 pixels. So now we will add the import statement, that is import card.css. This is the code base for our main example, but this is a very good project, so I wanted you all to do this. Now inside app.js also we are going to import app.css. Now I'm going to create another CSS file. This will be targeting the form, so form.css. Here we will not add any class names, we will just target them. So for the form we will add a margin auto, and next we will target the input and the button together. So input comma button, it will have a margin of 5 pixels, a width of 30% of the complete desktop or whatever device you are viewing it in, a border of solid black 2 pixels, and a font size of 18 pixels. And we will also import it. So import form.css. Last CSS file that we are going to create is for the idea.js file. It will be targeting that component, and we will import idea.css, ideas.css, and we will create this new file. Inside components, ideas.css. here we need to create a class name because we are targeting the container indirectly. So inside idea, the return, I will add the class name ideas-container, and then we will target it inside the CSS file. So ideas container, it is going to have a padding of 20 pixels. The display is grid. The grid template column has a repeat of 3, 1 FR. So it will have 3 cards in one column and a grid gap of 20 pixels. The index.css file is at its default and we will import that also. You can add styling according to your wish. And now if we save all our files and we look at the output, then you will notice that we have 3 columns: title, description and submit. So let us just input idea 1 and the description is React app. So you will see when I click on submit, I'm getting a card which displays idea 1 and React app. So for adding more to this, stay tuned for the next video. In the next video we will be adding a few more things, a toggle button and the theme changer using useContext and useReducer. So I'll see you in the next video.